Well, greetings, Robert Locke here. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us today. We're doing an entire series that we call Tip of the Week, and the one that we're going to kind of work through today is this: generating more revenue is not about charging more fees. We have an awful lot of property managers. They start hearing our conversation about cranking out more revenues, making a lot more money in this business, and their knee jerk basically is kind of an intuitive one. It's kind of, Robert, I can't do that because I'll drive owners away. Or I don't know how to charge more money to owners and tenants without making them mad at me or leaving me. And in a newbie's mind, somebody that's kind of early in their business, they have difficulty figuring out, how do I make more money without charging the owner more money? And I know that many people kind of connect those two and they think you can't do one without the other, but it's really not the case. So we're going to kind of take about 6 minutes today and kind of peel this back a little bit and look at some of the correct thinking that it requires to understand that making more money does not mean increasing your fees. So we're going to take a 5-second break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, well, thanks for hanging with us. The conversation we're having is a tip of the week: generating more revenue is not about charging more in fees. And so there are 3 components to this idea. And let's talk about the first one. Is a scope of service limits what you do for the management fees you charge. Many people in the management industry have heard about a scope of service, but they've never really thought it through and put one together. A scope of service kind of addresses the issue that owners don't know what managers are supposed to do for the $80 or $100 a month they charge them. If you think it through a little bit, very few owners that we ever signed up knew what property managers did. They didn't have any experience with property managers in the past. They haven't done any reading or studying. And the idea of what does a property manager do for the $80 a month that I pay them? And if you don't answer that question, what's going to happen inadvertently is they're going to come up with this answer: everything. Everything I want the owner to, or I want the manager to do, they should do for the $80 a month. And unfortunately, property managers often come from a customer service standpoint instead of a scope of service standpoint. And if customer service is driving you, then what you'll do is say yes. You'll say yes to managing a property line dispute or managing a home warranty. You'll say yes to managing their HOA payments or their utilities. You'll inadvertently say yes to forming an LLC for an out-of-country investor and helping him get the tax forms done correctly. If you're not careful, everything an owner asks you to do, or in some cases bullies you to do, pushes you to do, you'll do it. Because so many of us are driven from this customer service standpoint to say yes. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't put bookends on this, if you don't say the $80 a month pays for these services, that's called a scope of service. If you haven't written that down and have something that you can give the owner so that they can understand what you do for the $80 a month, you're going to drown in staff. You're going to drown in work. And we found managers all over the country that the number of staff they have just keeps growing and growing. Not their revenues, just their staff, because they cave in to owners, but demanding and pushing them to do things that they really shouldn't be doing for $80 a month. So how do you define that? How do you put caps on that? How do you put bookends on that? The answer is to develop a good scope of service. And here's the advertisement, okay? We have a section on our website where we've developed all the tools you need to put a scope of service together so that you don't get dragged into that. Now, the second component of this looks like this: offer services outside your scope of service. In other words, if you have a scope of service that says nothing about we'll manage the utilities between tenants, now you have an opportunity to say to the owner, that isn't a part of our scope of service, but we can get that done for you. We outsource that to a company. They charge $20 per service hookup. Would you like us to get that done for you? In other words, you've put a limit on the services that you offer, and managing utilities isn't on that service or isn't on that list. So what you do is come back and say, you want us to manage the insurance claim? Well, that's not part of our scope of service, but we have a company that we outsource that to. They charge X, Y, Z. Would you like us to get that done for you? And so developing a list, a precise list of what you do for your $80 or $100 a month gives you an opportunity to bring other services in that are outside of your scope of service and make money doing that. Okay? So if you just listen to their demands and follow their bullying and have them kind of say something like this, well, what am I paying you for anyway? You know, we heard that for years when we were managing rentals here in Atlanta, and we just had to figure out how to build a scope of service so that this wouldn't happen. So that's component number 2. Component number 3 looks like this: offer ancillary business services. Now, as long as I've been around NARPM, I'm amazed at the creativity of NARPM members to bring in services, other businesses, create other revenue streams to offer owners and tenants to help them with certain kinds of problems. We've seen people open, the most obvious would be a maintenance company. Well, you see, that's an ancillary business that you set up to service the needs that come out of your management company. You could set up a small loan company, and we did that. You could set up a collections business. You can, if you're good at kind of home inspections, you can offer a home inspection service. You can offer insurance claim services. There's all kinds of sideline businesses that kind of you evolve into over a period of time, so that the things that are not on your scope of service doesn't mean you don't do them. It just means you don't do them for the $80 a month. So make sure you understand what I'm saying. This is not about, Mr. Owner, we won't do these things. This is, Mr. Owner, that $80 a month covers this list of work and all the different tasks that we do for the $80 a month. If you want a service provider that's outside that list, we're happy to do it, but there's a fee attached to it. And if you don't set up a real clear scope of service, if you don't have something that absolutely locks down what do you do for the $80 a month, then you're going to get dragged in, your labor costs are going to go up, you're going to spend all kinds of time doing things that you're not being paid for. Part of our goal is to help you do things to generate more revenue, and having a good scope of service is a key element to that. Now, where do you find it? Okay, now I put this slide in wrong. I put this in wrong, so I warn you. You go to our website, trainingpropertymanagers.com, and you go under products, and then there's a cashing in bucket, but the one you're looking for is a graphic called Scope of Service. There's a whole package there for you to download, give you 3 or 4 different ways to kind of construct this issue of a scope of service, so that you're defining, you're educating the owner on what you do for the $80 a month, which kind of implies there's some things we can do that are not a part of the $80 a month. We're happy to provide those, Mr. Owner. There's a cost of X, Y, or Z, okay? So 3 components is develop a good, strong scope of service, make sure you offer other services beyond that for additional revenues, and then bring in different businesses to offer other revenue stream opportunities and other services to your management business. So, tip of the week, zero in on your scope of service. Make sure you've got one together, and we can help you do that on our website. Well, look, thank you for hanging out with us today. We appreciate the time, and keep going to our site. We've got a bunch of online courses. We've got a series. We've got tons of stuff, both that you can use in your office for training your staff, things that'll bring you along in the business. And we do one-on-one consulting and put our shoulder behind companies around the United States and really help people bear down and make sure they're making this nickel-dime business, turn it into a money machine. We know how to do that. We appreciate you hanging out with us today. Thank you.